This is something that really happened. A group of men were cave diving when one of the divers ahead of them tragically died in an accident. Another teammate, upon witnessing this, was so terrified that he panicked, causing his breathing to become erratic. He choked on water and drowned. The person trapped in the middle was unable to move, his limbs trembling and scalp tingling with fear. Seeing that both in front and behind him were teammates who had perished, how could he possibly escape this predicament? This incident took place on the 6th of February, 2014. 5 people gathered on the ice of a small pond, cutting a triangular hole. Beneath the pond was the entrance to the cave. To keep the water clear and minimize the disturbance of sediment, they planned to split into 2 groups and enter the cave one after the other. The expedition was expected to last about 5 hours, so they were fully equipped for the journey. 2 of them entered the cave with propulsion devices, swimming about 30 meters through the dark water. At this point, they reached an air chamber that stretched over 200 meters long. Here they took a brief rest before continuing deeper inside. The river water was icy cold, the passage grew increasingly narrow, and they were surrounded by jagged, uneven cliffs. When they descended to the cave's deepest point at 135 meters, they encountered a passage ahead that turned almost 180 degrees. Patrick first pushed the propulsion device forward, then carefully swam after it. As Patrick continued to ascend, he realized that his teammate Jario hadn't followed. When he turned around, he saw Jario shaking his flashlight up and down repeatedly. This was a distress signal. Patrick immediately rushed over to check on Jario, only to find that he had gotten the propulsion device's line caught on a rock. Patrick tried hard to help him break free, but Jario was in a panic and seemed to be getting more and more anxious. Everyone was wearing closed-circuit rebreathers. The advantage of a closed-circuit system is that it preserves usable gas and recirculates it for the diver to breathe again, allowing for longer dives. But the downside is that if you become overly anxious and start hyperventilating, it can easily lead to respiratory alkalosis, which is extremely dangerous. Jario's equipment detected abnormal breathing and sounded an alarm. Just as he was about to switch to his own backup open-circuit tank, he choked on a few mouthfuls of water. Jario's hands and feet began to convulse. Patrick saw this and immediately shoved the respirator into Jario's mouth, but it was already too late. Seeing that Jario was no longer moving and looking at his fallen teammate, Patrick forced himself to stay calm. He wanted to bring Jario back, but at that moment he realized his own breathing was also becoming increasingly erratic. The dive computer showed that it would take 400 minutes to safely decompress and ascend, which was already 3 or 4 times longer than originally planned. Patrick had no choice but to press on, his heart heavy with grief. Meanwhile, the other 3 entered the cave one after another at the agreed time, completely unaware of what awaited them ahead. When they reached the depths of the cave, the 2 who had gone ahead first saw their teammates stuck in the passage, but upon learning that Jario, who was floating in the water, had already perished, Jario instantly panicked. Jarihu's rapid breathing made his mind grow confused, and he hurriedly switched to his caving gear. Kai, who was behind, also noticed Jarihu's distress. He tried to calm Jarihu down, but before long Jarihu too left this world. Kai was overwhelmed by a deep sense of helplessness, and the water, now disturbed, had become murky and unclear. He couldn't see what was ahead, and the passage was blocked by Jarihu. Kai guessed that things ahead were probably dire, so he decided to turn back the way he came. The way back was longer than the way in, and by now, there was little oxygen left. Kai didn't have time to stop for decompression. He just wanted to get back to the air chamber above as quickly as possible. Meanwhile, Weiss still hadn't figured out how to deal with Jarihu ahead, when, unexpectedly, another teammate Jarihu blocked him from behind. After some thought and weighing his options, he finally decided to pull Jarihu aside and keep moving forward. It took him at least 15 minutes to pull Jarihu aside just enough to squeeze through. But by then, the oxygen level was already too low to support a prolonged decompression stop. He had no choice but to ignore the risk of decompression sickness and continue ascending. He didn't know how much time had passed when Wisa saw a beam of light ahead. It turned out to be Patrick. After they met up, the 2 of them agreed that the 3 people behind had already perished. Meanwhile, Kai, who was swimming back, believed that the 4 people ahead of him had all perished. In the end, the 3 of them returned for treatment for decompression sickness and to seek help, only to discover that only Jarihu and Jarihu had actually died. The next day, the rescue team immediately began their rescue operation. However, the cave conditions were extremely complicated, and the authorities ultimately decided to abandon the recovery efforts and seal off the area, leaving the bodies inside forever. The 3, unable to let go even after recovering, decided to bring their companions out of the cave. A month later, they organized 27 divers, quietly gathered at the site, and spent 5 days retrieving the 2 bodies, documenting the process in a film. This secret operation attracted widespread attention from the media. Although they had violated the authorities' orders, they were not subjected to any punishment.